force the Palestinians to go to the table and continue discussing. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. That's what they've continued saying to them. Oh, you want peace? You want this, you want that. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. This latest deal is another, we'll talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Let's just come to the table. We'll have a temporary ceasefire, and we're going to continue to talk about it. No, Hamas is saying, look, you want a temporary ceasefire where we give you back a bunch of hostages. And then after we give you back all your hostages, you're going to start bombing us again. You're going to go right back at it because you've gotten what you wanted. And now we have no more bargaining chips. And all we're doing now is just taking a pummeling. And the only thing that we can do is hope that the world intervenes and says, this is a damn genocide and we're not going to allow it. It's no longer about peace and calls. It's about liberating people. We're going to have to start liberating these people. So I think it's totally fair for them to say, put it in writing. And we don't want any of this ambiguous bullshit anymore that you guys keep bringing to the table. All of this, like, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll keep talking about it. Well, after the Oslo Accords and after the other peace agreements that they had in 2000, what did they do? The Israelis continued to renege on those agreements by continuing to build settlements in the West Bank, continuing to use IDF soldiers to harass the Palestinian people. And then the Palestinian people would fight back and Israel would say, see, they didn't withhold their end of the bargain. It's their fault. When Israel kept it ambiguous, said we're going to keep talking, and then continued to take. That's been going on the entire time. The Israelis against the Palestinian people, the entire time. Every single negotiation that you can bring forward, that Ben Shapiro can bring forward and say, this is the reality, this is the truth, this is what's really going on. Every single time, look at the wording of the negotiations. It's, we agree to continue negotiating, and it's always bullshit. They said, third, the Egyptian leadership requested that Hamas send a leadership delegation to Cairo within the next 2 days. It also sent invitations to the leadership of the Islamic Jihad movement and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the PLO, to participate in the upcoming meetings there. Accordingly, the Palestinian factions are preparing to send delegations representing them to the Egyptian capital. Fourth, the round of consultations between the factions ended by confirming the mandate of the Hamas movement to speak on its behalf and blocking any attempt to open other negotiating paths aimed at giving the enemy additional opportunities to procrastinate. Fifth, the factions informed both Egypt and Qatar that the resistance does not consider itself concerned with providing any guarantees to the enemy regarding what it calls the next phase, and that any agreement that does not guarantee a permanent ceasefire will not be signed. Yeah, fair enough. I think it's fair for Hamas to demand a permanent ceasefire, an end to the war. We'll give you all your hostages back. You have to end this war and help us rebuild Gaza. 6, the Hamas movement informed the Egyptian side that it rejects any plans related to the Rafah border crossing as long as the enemy occupies it. According to Al Akbar information, the official in charge of the Palestinian file in Egyptian General Intelligence, Major General Ahmad Abdul Khaleg, was personally informed of the movement's position, which stresses the enemy's complete withdrawal from the Rafah crossing and then every recent incident. So they don't want Israel totally and completely in control of all of their humanitarian aid. Right now, Israel controls all of their crossings, and they're saying we don't want them controlling our crossings. Fair enough. How can you be a sovereign nation if Israel's controlling all of your crossings? And that's been, again, the issue with Gaza. Israel has controlled absolutely everything. They've said, we left. It's, it's always a facade. It's, oh, we don't have any boots on the ground there. We don't have anybody there. So we're not occupying Gaza. They didn't occupy Gaza, but they blockaded it and they controlled it. You don't have to actually have boots on the ground in order to control. You can use AI and drones and surveillance and all kinds of things to control people's lives. And that's exactly what they've done to the Gazan people. So that's Hamas's position. They're saying, look, fundamentally, this can't be temporary. First of all, this has to be permanent. We're not going to agree to temporary so that we could give you what you want, and then you just come back and slaughter us. Secondly, it can't be vague and ambiguous of, we'll keep negotiating. We're going to negotiate towards a permanent ceasefire. Now's the time to negotiate that permanent ceasefire. You either give us the permanent ceasefire now, or you don't. But you don't say to us, oh, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. I think that's a totally fair position. I think it's completely fair. So that's their position. Israel's position is less understandable. I understand why Netanyahu would want to save his skin. I understand why he'd want to maintain his role in the government. I understand why I understand the logic behind it, but it isn't morally right. I think what the Palestinians are asking for, what Hamas even is asking for, whether you like Hamas or not, um, I certainly don't. I know many Palestinians who do not. They don't see other options, unfortunately for them. And so, they take what they can get, and Hamas is what they can get, and it's really unfortunate. But look, I think Hamas has the moral high ground on this negotiating point when they're saying, look, stop giving us this vague crap and make it permanent. I can understand that position a little bit better than I understand the Israelis' position. But Israel, the Israeli people, the problem is the Israeli people are siding, they want the war. The vast majority of the Israeli people want the war to continue. The vast majority of Israeli people, I hate to say this, but it is becoming increasingly clear. The vast majority of Israeli people are genocidal. They might not know they're genocidal. They might not recognize themselves as genocidal, but they are essentially genocidal. They're genocidal in a way that is, they are sort of like, they kind of think genocide's inevitable. Like ethnic cleansing and genocide's just kind of inevitable. And they've kind of realized that. They're kind of like, well, we can't really live with these Palestinians. And so, what are we going to do? I don't really want to get rid of them. I wish we could live in peace, but we can't. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And that's ethnic cleansing campaigns, forced ethnic cleansing. The way you do forced ethnic cleansing is through genocide. That's how they did it with the Jews in Europe, right? They made them so frightened. They made their lives so miserable that they basically said, you got to go to Israel. You got to get out of here. You can't stay here. It's not safe for you. And that's how they do it. So that's kind of the strategy that they're looking at. But unfortunately, the average Israeli, there are definitely a lot of great Israelis who are 100% against all of this. They are speaking up. They're using their voices. They are heroes. But there are more, unfortunately, who are the pro-war, pro-ethnic cleansing, or inevitable ethnic cleansing genocide camp. And they support this. And that is why Netanyahu's continued to stay in power. They might not like Netanyahu for other reasons, but they agree with him. And anybody else who comes into power after Netanyahu is going to have the same, the people are going to be demanding these sorts of security guarantees, which includes no Palestinians anymore at their border. It is just, but if they knew what was best for them, if they didn't want to be viewed by the world as a pariah, I believe the world is going to be increasingly ripping away Israel's, if they continue down this path much longer, I think it's going to get worse than just the world accusing them of genocide. I think more of the world is going to turn into where they're not going to recognize Israel as a nation. They're no longer going to recognize them. And that is what sort of the Maldives is doing. They've said, we won't accept Israeli passports. You cannot travel here on an Israeli passport. That's essentially saying we no longer recognize you as a nation. There are some other Arab nations that do not recognize Israel. They do not accept Israeli passports. When they come across them at the airport, they say, this isn't real. This isn't a real document. We don't accept this. So there could be an increase in the world where more of the world kind of takes that position. But if the Israelis knew what was best for them, if they truly cared about their own survival, they would come up with a genuine commitment to peace between them and the Palestinians. And the only way they're going to do that is by giving the Palestinians the justice they deserve. Israelis desperately want security. Palestinians desperately want justice. Both sides need to see those two things in order for there to truly be peace in that region. And Israel has the power, so it really does fall on Israel to make the first move, to put themselves out there, to actually risk something, rather than asking the Palestinians to let's just keep talking about it. Let's just keep talking about it. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen show, which you could catch just by heading to that link down below, KimIversonShow.com. You can watch the full show from what you just watched, or you could catch the full show live Monday through Friday, live streams, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you then. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Never miss an episode. Never miss a clip. Never miss a segment. Thanks, guys.